So now that we're done with the golfing, again, so just like intro content, right? So the way that we teach jiu-jitsu here is we rely heavily on a system of alignment that I stole from these guys on the island, from Island Top Team. But it's a good conceptual based thing to teach you how to get started and get going right away, instead of relying on rote memory and like memorizing moves, and then I roll around until I find a time I can do this move, and then I try to hit you with this move, I'm unsuccessful, and I get crushed and I feel bad for the rest of the training session. So the overarching idea of the jiu-jitsu we teach here is you're trying to maintain your alignment, you're trying to defeat your opponent's alignment, and then you're trying to do whatever you want, whether that be to pass the guard, to sweep, to take the guy down, to finish him, whatever. It's all, the big idea is keep your alignment, compromise his alignment, and go from there. So alignment is composed of three things. You have your base, your posture, and your structure. If you have all three, you have a score of 3. If you have anything less than that, you have a score of 2, 1, or potentially 0, right? So we'll start with base being the most first starting one. So basically, to be in good base jiu-jitsu is you're in a position to generate maximum force relative to your goal. So the best example of this is if Owen's on the bottom, right? And let's say he doesn't want me to strangle him. He doesn't want my hands to get to his neck, right? If he puts his feet into my hips right now, he's in very good base because he's able to generate maximum force. Like a double leg press is about as much force as you can generate relative to his goals, which is to keep me from strangling him. This is really, really good base, right? So he has a score of 1 at this point. If you look at me, if I want to get to him, I'm in a pretty good, like this is like a runner's stance. Like this is as much leg drive as I can get, right? So I have good base. So we're 1 for 1. Anytime the score is like complementary or equal, you're probably not going to get anywhere with it, right? The next one is posture. So that's kind of like spinal alignment and rotation. So if you've ever tried to like lift weights or squat or anything and you have like your head tilted to one side or you're off a little bit, you bleed a lot of force out, so you can't generate maximum force, right? So again, here his posture is pretty good. His neck and his spine are in alignment, right? Versus if I twisted him up this way and I'm coming in, then he's no longer, because his upper body is turned to his right, his lower body is turned to the left. Posture is kind of twisted, right? Or if he were to go like this and just pin your ear to your shoulder for whatever reason you're here, like it immediately weakens everything because your posture is compromised, right? But assuming he doesn't have anything weird going on, he's got a score, like he gets 1 point for having good posture, so he's got 2. I also have not like handicapped myself in any way, so I also have good. So this is 2 to 2. Again, I'm trying to get to his neck, not happening, right? Structure is one of the harder ones to explain because it's basically kind of the most efficient way to do anything. So a bad structure is easy to explain. So bad structure would be like if your elbows are flared out, like chicken wing style, if your like legs are torqued or twisted. But ideally, if I'm in a straight on position, I'm pretty good. The best example I find for this is like a push-up position. So if you're in the top of the plank, like this, you're in good posture here, or good structure, because the structure of your arms is pretty good. If you're at the bottom of the push-up here, it's also structurally you're pretty sound. Where it kind of comes apart is like if you're like this, my elbows kind of flare out a bit, you're not as strong as you can be, right? So this one is probably the most difficult to explain out of that, but essentially just like keep your arms to yourself and don't twist yourself in weird positions, right? So on the bottom. So assuming it's all good, if you do like what's called like an alignment check or a score check, it's like he has 1 for base, he's 1 for posture, you know, assuming he's not like this, he has 1 for structure. So he's got a alignment score of 3. Myself, I also have an alignment score for 3. So as long as he maintains his alignment and I maintain my alignment, I can move around. I can try to, I'm not gonna get to him, right? Because you're just 3 to 3. So you need to create a deficit. And then the way that we create deficits is through the use of frames to access levers and to some degree wedges. So we'll start with what's a lever? A lever is just a force multiplier, right? So if he sits up and he doesn't want me to push him down, so I'm pushing him this right? So don't let me push you down, right? Like, pretty good. That's like directly into his shoulder. If I secure something like a lever to his leg, so don't let me push you down, right? You're using a lever to his hip to knock his hip over. Much easier, right? So the amount of force I have to generate with this is much lower than, I mean, I'm pretty beefy, you know, I could maybe do it, probably not, but it's just a force multiplier, right? Likewise, if I were to directly push his shoulder here, this is directly pushing it in, doesn't let me turn it, versus I open up his arm and I access the lever through the elbow to the end here, like it becomes easier. And at the end, so don't let me push his shoulder, like it's super easy, right? You'll be able to turn people, right? So it's using accessing levers, right? So usually the foot, the ankle, the knee, hip, all levers. And how we access those things is using frames. So frames are generally used to like take force, like this is a frame, right? Because this is mechanical, this is not muscular. This is muscular, like I burn a lot of gas here, but here, unless the weight is enough to dislocate my shoulder from itself, I'm good. So in action, what this looks like is if he's on the bottom, you know, so again, if we keep in mind that score thing, so we're 3-3 right now, right? If I maybe pull back and I use a frame, right? So if he lifts his foot up right now, it's not going anywhere. The frame is accessing the lever, and now I just push him to the side. So if he tries to, again, get his posture back, it becomes difficult, right? So I use a frame to access a lever to compromise his alignment. So if we do a quick score check right now, like nothing's really changed for me. My arm has moved. I was like this isn't really a structural thing, so I'm still good. So I have good base because I'm strangling him this way. I have good posture, I'm not twisted up. And arguably, I mean, if I was like this, maybe, but I'm not, right? So I still have 3. Whereas for him, if you look at his base, so his ability to generate maximum force relative to his goals, which is to keep me from strangling him, has been compromised immediately. So he has no base, right? He could drive strong that way. I'm not coming from that way. I'm coming from this way, right? So it's already 3, and he has 0 for base. Posture-wise, I mean, if he turns that way and lines up his posture, then he does have posture, but he gives up even more base, right? But if he stays like most people do, you know, I'm coming here, he stays like this, right? Lower body's twisted this way, right? Upper body's twisted this way, you have no posture, right? So the last thing is, he does have structure, but it's gonna be 1 to 3. So if he tries to prevent me from coming in to close the distance to get to his neck, it becomes difficult. So that's all it is. It's like, in the oversimplified world, it's like, just maintain your alignment, keep your alignment good, bust up the other guy, and then try to do stuff to him that he doesn't want, right? Right? Seems simple, but that's all it really is. So if you keep this in mind, you can learn and play with a lot of people. If you look at like, this is a good filter, so if you go online, there's a lot of good content on YouTube these days. Some of it's good, some of it's bad, but if you run it through this filter, like, hey, when this guy does this like cheesy arm bars from somewhere, is the other guy's alignment compromised at all? If he's just there, he's just like, probably not. But if he's like cranked out like neck, then it makes a little bit more sense, right? So again, the over umbrella, at least the way I understand it, and like try to help here is like, keep your alignment, compromise the other guy's alignment, and go. So where this comes into play with most beginners is like, they don't know about this, so they will like recklessly compromise their alignment, and then they get finished. So if I'm with Owen and I have good alignment like this, right? So we're both in good alignment, but he really wants to strangle me. He just wants to get in here. He's just coming, and then he's gonna like do stuff where he compromises his own alignment because he hasn't recognized that he needs to not do that. Then I don't have to do anything. Like people will smash against you and they defeat themselves. There's also like the concept of like unforced errors for those pickleball players here. Like I'm the worst pickleball player in the world because I make so many unforced errors. I can barely hit that thing over the net. But I guarantee you, if I would just stop making mistakes, like if I could just reliably hit the ball over to where I want it to go, like you overnight probably become stellar. It's just like stupid things you do that's on you. So before you can be good, you just have to be less bad. Yeah? No, it really is. Like a lot of the stuff when I catch people is if I maintain my alignment and guys come at me hot, they just like they scroll themselves up, twist themselves up, and it's easy for me to submit or grab or take position because like I'm just focusing on like not getting jacked up, and you're jacking yourself up because you're working too hard to jack me up, or you're trying to jack me up like not efficiently, yeah? So the concept of alignment is really, really big here. And how we break it is using frames, levers. Wedges not so much, we can go over that a little bit later. There's basically 6 major positions in like jiu-jitsu, right? And we'll go through them real quick. So the first position is like a guard, right? So if he's on the bottom, anytime the guy has 4 appendages to deal with me not strangling him or breaking his joints, he has a guard. This is considered an open guard because his arms, legs, and it's open, right? It can also be a closed guard where it is locked up, right? But these are both variations of what's called a full guard, full 4 appendages, right? You can have lots of weird stuff in like full guard. You can have like De La Riva guards, right? You can have like reverse De La Riva guards, like that kind of stuff. You can have mantis guards, whatever. There's lots of variants of these things, but it's either full and it's closed, or it's full and it's open, right? The next variation is called a half guard, which is, as you may suspect, when he only has kind of like 3 appendages to deal with. So I've passed through one of his legs. I've kind of straddled his right leg here. So it's 1, 2, 3 dealing with me. So the difference in this you'll notice is like, I can close the distance right away. I can get chest to chest and I can kind of touch the good stuff, right? If I continue to progress further, I'll escape the control of this leg entirely and come to something called either a knee ride, or they call it knee on belly, but it's really a knee ride where I've kind of displaced or blocked out the lower half of his body. So it's all of my 4 against just his upper body, right? So that's pretty tough. I'm kind of keeping it back with my leg. If I transition, this is called a side control position, right? So again, same thing, except now it's all 4, my upper body, dealing with just his upper body. His legs are out of the equation. If you've ever watched like UFC and stuff, there's something called the mount, not to be confused with the closed guard, because now I am past his legs, and again, arguably whole body. And then the last one is the back position, where it's actually the same as the mount orientation-wise, but I would have his back with 2 hooks in, and my orientation of my hips is higher, right? So it's the same as if I was in the front. They sometimes call this rear mount as well for that reason, right? So I'm on the back, right? So there's a concept of like alignment over position. So you hear about it like, oh, the mount's super dominant or the back's super dominant, and they can be, but only if you take alignment into it, right? So each of these positions, the way I see it is the better positions allow you more easily to break alignment. So if you're in the open guard, like he's on the bottom, how did I break his alignment from here, right? I used a frame, access a lever, pushed into the side, compromised it, and then I can make progress, right? If I was in the mount, like you can have good alignment in the mount. So if he has good, like his elbows are nice and he can still bridge. He's got decent base. His posture is pretty good. It's not twisted up. His structure is nice and tight, right? But for me on the bottom here, me on the top here, if I wanted to break his posture when I'm in the mount, I just grab his head and I push it to the side. And now, like, his posture is compromised. It was easy for me to compromise his posture, and it's very difficult. Like, if I was stronger, I'd probably just hold this here, and it's tough. You're just super weak, right? Same with the back. So if I wanted to do that from an open guard, like, I can't, right? So it's not the position that's dominant, it's what the potential for the positions. It's easy to crank people's neck, easy to flare out there. Like, I can't flare, I can't break his structure from here. I can maybe leg drag, but it's tough because it's my arms fighting his leg, right? Versus if I was on the mount, I'm here, it's like, oh, it's my 2 arms fighting his 1 arm. This is a much higher percentage and more powerful structure break than, especially this guy with tree trunk legs, like it'd be tough for me to, it's tough. I gotta work to get it, right? Whereas there's just like, meh. So the better positions in the hierarchy of things allow you easier breaks for alignment, right? So if you keep that in mind, like oh, why do I go to the back? It's easier to break your alignment from there. Therefore, it's easier to like strangle from there as well. Everything becomes easier when their alignment's broken, right? So even if I take the back position, actually, you do it on me. So if he grabs the back position like this, right? Arguably, I actually have pretty decent base because I can drive him that way hard. My structure is a little compromised on this side, but my posture is pretty good. So if he tries to strangle me or attack me from here, it's probably not gonna go too well. Like I'm in good defense. But if he, tilts me off to the side like this, climbs up, starts flaring this elbow out and stuff like this, or traps the arm, like now this is a compromising position for me to attack from, right? So if you just start trying to take like pot shots when they're in good alignment, it just hits a wall. And if nothing else, like you create the opportunity when you hit that wall to crumple your own alignment. And then like, if people try to attack me with attacks or do anything when it's like red light, green light, if it's not your turn to go and you go, you're gonna get T-boned in the intersection, right? Does that make sense? Yeah, so good refresher for all of us. Or some of us who don't train this way, you don't have to. It's just, for me, it helps a lot and it's really, really useful. So a refresher for that, just to go over it, makes sense, yeah?